Hello and welcome to our West Coast Today podcast with me, Sandy Neal.
Me, Owen Wild.
Me, Kathy Griffiths.
And me, Fiona Scott.
Here is a wee taster of some of the stories from Scotland's West Coast this week, appearing in this Thursday's Lochaber Times and Oban Times, and on our one-stop shop website, www.westcoasttoday.co.uk. We love hearing your stories, so why not drop us an email at editor@obantimes.co.uk or editor@lochabertimes.co.uk or through our socials. Or you can give us a call on 01631 568 000. First up today is Owen. Owen, what's in this week's Oban Times?
Blast from the past there with that sentence, Sandy. The First Minister has promised a review into the funding of the Mull Campus project, which could potentially open the door to a split-site campus which campaigners are asking for, if Argyll and Bute Council admits to the government that more flexibility in the funding is needed. Bid for Oban is greatly scaling back its flagship hanging baskets as it faces significant financial woes. Just 9 baskets have gone up on bridges across town, and the announcement came at a tense AGM which irked many levy payers in attendance due to the lack of financial records available to review. Read more in this week's OT. And finally, over on West Coast Today, you can enjoy the second episode of our new series, Spotlight On, where I tried my hand at roller hockey. Now, I wasn't very good at it, but it was still great fun. Oban Inline Roller Hockey Club was full of lovely people, and if you can already skate, I highly recommend giving it a go. So if you enjoy watching me fall over, you can watch that right now.
It's a classic. Sorry, Owen, but I keep having to watch it.
Yeah, I think it's had quite high comedy ratings, I think.
Well done you for even attempting it.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't easy.
Yeah, exactly. And his foot's up in plaster as we speak. Thank you very much, Owen. Next up today is Kathy. Kathy, what else can we read about in this week's Oban Times?
Huge shout out to Oban Good Samaritan and disaster responder John Murphy, an international aid worker who is out in the Congo helping Christian charity Samaritan's Purse set up a 30-bed clinic in a remote village where deadly Ebola has hit. John is a veteran attending disaster zones. He was in Italy during the COVID crisis. He's been to war zone Iraq and the Bahamas after it was struck by a hurricane. But this is the first time his wife Louise says she has feared she could become a widow. Read about John's mission in this week's OT and online at www.westcoasttoday.co.uk and find out how you can help support his work. I've also been catching up with maker and writer Mary Stones, who has started a new blog charting a record of what is happening on protected Lochaber shores. She's walking the route in sections, and she'll be leaving hidden messages of inspiration and hope connecting with nature. And finally, ahoy there, me mateys. How's your voice and your sea legs? Up for a bit of a sing-song of the rip-roaring sea shanty kind? Well, if you are, then Oban is the place to be this weekend when the town hoists the latest edition of Oban International Sea Shanty Festival in venues around town. Also, it's Killin' Music Festival making a return this weekend. There are still just a few tickets left for sale. Great lineup for the Saturday night. I'm going to be there. That's my weekend sorted. Back to you, Sandy.
Well, thank you very much, Kathy. Now, a look at what's in this week's Lochaber Times.
Thanks, Sandy. So, a charity trust has come under fire this week following the expulsion of one of its founder members. Former trustees and current members of the John Muir Trust have slammed the treatment of Professor Dennis Mollison, who was deemed by the board to have breached their newly revised Code of Conduct. JMT is Scotland's third biggest charity landowner and is responsible for Ben Nevis among other iconic sites. Former Trust Chair John Hutchison called the decision to expel Professor Mollison a travesty of democracy and a further stain on the good name of the charity. A Fort William nurse has reached the peak of her endeavours by bagging all of Scotland's 282 Munros over the space of 6 years. Mother of 3 Rosie Kennedy scaled her last mountain, Stop Ban, near Kinlochleven, on May the 30th, when more than 50 friends and family joined her on the summit. And last but not least, Inverlochy Primary School pupils have been competing at their own Highland Games, with fun and sportsmanship being the winners on the day. You can read all these stories in full and more in this week's Lochaber Times, or why not jump over to www.westcoasttoday.co.uk, where you will find news and features from all our titles here on the West Coast. Back to you, Sandy.
Thank you very much, Fee. Well, back in the land of the Oban Times, and Argyll and Bute Council suddenly paused its plans for Clachan Bridge traffic lights after officers and councillors faced a backlash. Pleas have been made for a meeting between councillors and community figures on the relocation of the Mull school campus. Following a nurses' campaign calling for the return of parking permits for medical staff on call in Oban, the council will now review permits for emergency workers, but it warns the permits may not be possible or quick. And finally, Capercaillie singer Karen Matheson will join more than 90 local performers at St Conan's Kirk on Saturday, June the 20th, for a special fundraising concert, helping the young members of Tynalt Youth Pipe Band buy their first performance kilts. I think that's a fine wee taster of what's in this week's papers. You can also read all these stories and more at www.westcoasttoday.co.uk, and this podcast is now available on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else you usually get your podcasts. Just search for the West Coast Today podcast in the service of your choice. Meanwhile, many thanks for listening, and it's bye from me, Sandy Neal.
Bye from me, Owen Wild.
Bye from me, Kathy Griffiths.
And bye from me, Fiona Scott.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, hey.